All right, ladies and gentlemen, to prove to you that we are in the middle of winter, I have decided, because I have shown the previous video to a family member where I was running. I'm not really running now, just like a mild jog or something. And I said, when I was showing it, I said, look, this is in winter. And then he said, I don't see this. You know, that's the kind of thing that fathers tell you. You think, oh, everybody should know it's cold. Only then he ripped that off and said, well, I don't see it. So I thought, you know, I think it's a bit stupid, because I have the feeling I still have to prove to people that there's something I'm trying to teach you, although you seem to be all kind of reluctant to get the message. You know, I don't really understand. I mean, I've been doing such a good job producing so much content for you to dive into, to get to know yourself, to try and quiet down a little, and to basically see what comes up when you watch one of these videos, especially the previous ones that I made, where I believe, well, I've tried it myself, but of course, since I'm the one doing these videos, I also know what I'm doing. So, right, there's this kind of technique, which is a sort of focus, because we are used to looking at very disturbing content. If I go online and I watch YouTube shorts, or sometimes I do spend a bit of time on TikTok just to see what people are creating, everything that means 99% of the content that is being created is completely mindless. People don't even know why they are creating things. They are creating things because they feel lonely. They are creating things because they want to be liked. And then there are other people, which is then the rest, like 1% of the people, who actually have a message other than, please worship me, right? It's like people like, you know, I don't want to point out too many people, because celebrities are having a hard time as well. You know, pick any celebrity who's posting online. Why do they do it usually? Because they want more likes, right? They are used to being worshipped, and so they want to be worshipped even more. And you are all doing it, right? You're all saying, oh, this person acted in a series, so now they're awesome, right? And I want to have your baby. Like, oh my God, you're so sexy, right? It's not really what I wanted to go into, but just as an introduction, right? If people finally manage to watch more than 20 seconds of my videos, or nothing at all, right? There's something to learn here. And the thing is, if you spend time with things that try to calm you down, or that try to give you something that's a bit different, you have to spend time with it to learn the language. To learn the language of the person that is trying to speak to you. I'm trying to speak to you already for probably 2 years, right? And I'm trying to make it more and more clear. Hello, people! I also exist, right? Because until now, I'm kind of struggling, right? It's actually today quite comfortable. Also, fresh snow can feel quite good when you are used to it. At the moment, it feels good. But I also jogged a bit in the beginning, and that warms up my feet. So when my feet get too cold, I just start jogging, and that usually helps. This is my hat. I've made it myself. It's a form of meditation. You may have heard of it. It's called crochet, right? There were flags on here. I covered them because I don't like flags, because they indicate, you know, that I'm like rooting for a specific country or something, which I'm not. That's why I cover it up. And the videos that I make, if you take one of them, let's say the ones in the playlist work with fear or work with your fear, I'm not entirely sure. You put on headphones, right? You turn on the video, you put it on full screen, and then you look at what is happening on the screen. And you pick a certain point that is drawing your attention, right? And then you focus on it. And that is done by sort of gazing at the screen. And it's like shifting your focus a little. So you're actually looking at it a bit out of focus. And a way to describe that is actually found in The Golden Compass from his Dark Materials, where Lyra is describing how you read the alethiometer, which is the truth teller. And that's the same method that is used when reading all sorts of oracles or looking for visions. And I've tried it with my videos, and it literally, because you have to imagine, those are your eyes. And you spend probably a large amount of your days looking at really disturbing stuff. It's like people wiggling their asses in front of the camera. Everything's like short-paced, right? People, I don't know, making huge amounts of food and in 20 seconds like bats, you know, putting it on their plate and then pretending like they eat it, while in truth they probably all throw it away because nobody can eat that much food. But it's basically made, you know, I'm pretty confusing right now. So what is TikTok doing? It's trying to confuse you to keep you hooked. Because when you're confused, you're running around, you know, you're quite reluctant to think about why you're actually watching TikTok videos, why you're watching YouTube videos. And my goal is, or my attempt is, to create content that relaxes you. And that's why probably if you listen to some of my music, you will have the feeling, what the fuck is this? This doesn't sound like music. No, maybe not to you, but to me it does. Because I know why I'm making this. This can actually overwrite your hearing patterns, right? It's like you're being bombarded with folks like Linkin Park that are screaming their depression into your ear, right? People that like lie to you through the microphone, telling you bullshit, like controversial messages such as, you know, don't think about it. I mean, you should think about it, but that's of course what large corporations make money with, that you don't think about it. Because if you would take the time and think about walking barefoot in the snow, you would probably pretty much realize that there are a lot of obstacles in your mind that keep you from doing so, which is, I'm gonna get sick, you know, I'm gonna get frostbite, which is a possibility, so, you know, you have to be careful in a way. Right, you know, oh, feet are delicate. I've literally tried destroying my feet since 2012. You know, I've hiked for hours barefoot. The first winter I started walking barefoot, which was in 2012. I actually spent in Norway. So my first winter experience I had at minus 20 degrees Celsius. And I still have all my toes. And what you can see is when it's cold, you know, in the beginning, this is rather uncomfortable. I mean, severely uncomfortable. But it gets easier. And what this does is, you know, if I talk to you about energy and grounding, I'm probably gonna lose you right away, right? I could go really into depth. So I have to learn to hold myself back from overloading you with very deep insights, right? You know, maybe that's the stuff you can hear in my podcast, but I think YouTube is quite like materialistic, right? So first of all, when you walk barefoot, you don't land like this, because if you do so, you will pretty soon realize that that's gonna get quite uncomfortable for your knees. So the way you roll off, it's quite gentle over the heel. That's how I walk. Now, in the forest, the ground is quite soft. On concrete, you will notice this much stronger. So what this does is, your legs, the tendons and the muscles are catching the shock. You are walking consciously with an awareness of how it feels to place your feet. Generally, people that wear shoes, they don't pay attention because the shoe, or so they think, absorbs the shock for them. But there's still some residue shock, you know, that goes all the way into the knee. And another point is, you don't get the appropriate training for all these things. And red toes are a good sign, especially in winter. They show that the blood is flowing. Now, when you walk barefoot in winter, in the snow, please watch out for the salt that they put out, because that lowers the freezing point of the water below zero, which means if you walk on concrete where they put out salt to melt ice and snow, then you have water that has -3, -4 degrees is possible, and that's quite aggressive. About 2 years ago, or I think maybe it was last winter, I actually had frostbite. I recognized it when I got back from a walk, and I was talking to another person while walking, and I didn't pay attention to my feet anymore, because normally in the beginning I always used to flex my toes. I would walk, and every step I took, as soon as my feet were in the air, I would flex my toes, which is something that I did also in Norway. So I always paid attention to my feet. How do they look like? Are my toes still red? You know, are they still flexible? As long as you can flex your toes, you know, okay, my toes are actually doing fine. Guten Tag.
Hello.
The problem is, if you don't do that, if you don't flex your toes in the beginning, your circulation isn't good enough yet. Which means the blood may actually freeze in your feet, in your toes. Amy, come. Amy, come. And that means you're gonna get frostbite, which is like burns from the cold. And last year when I did it, it was -14 degrees. I didn't pay attention to my feet. I should have probably jogged, but because I was talking to somebody, I wasn't focused. I didn't pay attention. Right now it's okay, because I've been doing it more often again recently. So if you're thinking about something like this, you know, just make sure that you keep your toes nice and red. Check it out, man. I mean, it's okay. Right now it actually gets to the point where I need this, because if I don't do this, and now I think I'm gonna get a bit further into the topic of grounding and energy. You know, I'm constantly thinking, should I make these videos shorter? Are they too long? Is that why people don't listen to it? No, people don't listen to it because they're lazy and because their attention span is so short from always watching this like supposedly funny content, which is just mindless junk, which doesn't even tickle your consciousness, right? It's just like, you know, it's just like vomit. People puking on the internet, and then people like me come actually creating content that has a lot of depth to it, and where you actually need to take the time to listen for the first time maybe in years. Somebody's talking to you and you have to listen. You have to open your ears, open your heart, and open your mind and say, what the fuck is that guy trying to tell me? Well, barefoot, whether that is in winter or in summer, is generally good because, first of all, it trains your feet. That's very important because that's the foundation of that vehicle that we call a body, where your soul rests in, right? That's just basic knowledge. If you don't know this, you have to start reading up on, you know, what spirituality actually is trying to say. It's like, you know, materialism is like the surface of what exists. And if you start diving, which is one way to describe also meditation, but also probably contemplation, right? To get to the feeling of inner peace, right? When you can sit at home, right? Or in a swarm of mosquitoes being half bitten to death, you know, hey man, I've got it, right? I'm absolutely at peace now. Well, nobody gets there just like that. Of course, you can take psychedelics, but your trips are gonna get more and more hectic, because if you use psychedelics to run away from your trauma and your negative emotions, these things are going to pile up and pile up and pile up. And that means if you keep smoking cannabis, at one point you're going to get paranoid or feel really uncomfortable. So yeah, just start looking at these things. One way of releasing negative energy from the body is by walking barefoot in nature. I say that because I have walked for years barefoot everywhere. That includes cities, like also major cities such as Frankfurt and stuff. And I can tell you it's really shit. It's dirty, it's disgusting. There's a lot of people spitting on the ground. You get a lot of negative feedback from people. I had people spitting on the ground in front of me, so to try and kind of put me into place. But it just showed me, okay, it's possible, but also, you know, don't walk in cities. That's at least how I see it now. So when you walk in nature, yeah, sure, it's gonna be fucking painful in the beginning. I mean, I'm not kidding you about that. But you just have to work through that. As long as it feels somehow good. You know, I cannot say that it felt good. I just did it. I started 2012 in summer, and I have done it ever since. I have taken a break for about a year where I wore mostly shoes and socks at home because I was emotionally really unstable. But when I started, I just did it. And then I started running barefoot. I started hiking barefoot. And probably the first 1 or 2 years it was quite heavy. But now it's gotten easier. But I always had pincers and a needle with me. But I learned a lot of well-earned lessons. Let's say it like this. You see, I'm kind of mumbling to myself, what am I talking about now? It's not really that important. I just want to talk to you about walking barefoot and show to you that I'm still walking barefoot in the snow, that my feet are still red. And that's of course also because I got used to it, because what happens, it's cold, cold exposure. Have a look at Wim Hof. It's good for depression. Grounding, you see, there's so many terms. I cannot boil this down to just like, I don't know, maybe if I would really think about it, but also right now my mind is like, whoo, going in all kinds of directions because there's so much information, right? It starts with grounding. Look it up. I cannot do all this work for you. You have to do your own homework. If you want to grow, if you want to learn, you have to start reading shit. Listen to people talking about this kind of stuff. I'm just somebody that gobbles up heaps of information and then I'm kind of like connecting it into some kind of loose ball because I'm trying to catch as many people as I can, right? But then there's other people that maybe only talk about barefoot. But as you can see in my content, I'm quite like, I do everything extensive. I make music, I write books. Yeah, I create artwork, I make videos, I have a podcast, and I do, this kind of stuff. So my mind is like going in all kinds of directions. I make a song, I make a video, I upload it, I write. I have quite a hectic life in that sense. Because my whole mind is on creating content all the time. And I go to great lengths to do that. And so I fill myself with all kinds of content. And then I see what comes out in the end. It's like going pregnant with the bullshit that society is putting out there. And then trying to find something useful in there. Some form of truth. So when I say to you something about grounding, what does it mean? A tree is grounded. It means you're connected to the earth. And that means when you're grounded like this, it means that negative energy can flow off into the ground and be replaced by positive energy, which you then get from Mother Nature. The thing is, that's how I feel. When you ground yourself, it might actually be a scary process. Because if you're replacing negativity, which is something you identify with suddenly positivity, then who are you? Who are you if you wake up and you're totally motivated, right? You may have it sometimes, occasionally, right? It's like a speck of light at the end of the horizon and you think, oh, today I feel good. Yeah, and then you have a bit of energy and then you go out, you go for a run, and the next day you feel empty again. So the trick is to learn how to charge yourself with the things that includes thoughts and food and content that you watch or listen to and people that you spend time with. So that means you fill yourself with the right kind of stuff that is right for you. And you empty yourself of the wrong kind of stuff. So walking barefoot in the snow, in the forest, is something I take the time to do. Which means, while I'm doing this, which is for my body a positive experience because I actually move my body, I go outside, I move it, I get used to the cold, I have to breathe, which is hard when you're talking a lot, of course, but that's what I give you, oh, he's so generous. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so I walk and I breathe and I leave my comfort zone. Right? The blood is starting to flow more because this is the roots of my body. So when the veins are pulling themselves together because it's cold, that means the blood is flowing faster in my feet, which means it's flowing easier through the body, which means circulation increases. So you can talk about blood, you can also talk about energy. Because in the end, everything is energy. Everything else that we use to describe energy, which might be molecules or oxygen or snow, it's just energy. It's energy, and if you think that cold exists, well, you've been trained well by the weather industry, right? Who wants to control your mind by giving you all kinds of ideas about weather, right? About whether or not you should go outside. Because of course, people who predict the weather or claim to predict the weather also want people to spend time with their predictions. I never look at the weather forecast. Never, ever. I also don't look at a thermometer. I just look outside and then I dress how I feel, right? If it rains, I dress appropriately, right? When it's hot, I dress appropriately. And I can also take, an extra sweater if I'm uncertain. And that has taught me to just deal with it. Because if you go out on a cold day, for instance, and you thought it was a bit warmer, but it's not, and suddenly you start feeling cold, well, what are you gonna do? Run home and get a sweater? No. You actually start breathing more into your stomach because that increases the energy flow, or it saturates your body with oxygen, and then all the bodily functions work much better, or your body has more energy available because energy is freely circulating instead of it's like a river, right? Happily flowing. When you breathe into your stomach, right, you pump energy into your body. And the bad energy you pump out. And that's what I usually do when I go out in the snow like this. I breathe into my stomach. I replace the negativity inside with fresh energy from the outside. And that's why I recommend going into nature, because if you're in a city environment, there's all kind of bad vibes floating around. There's yeah, what is there? Toxic car fumes, people that are angry, all kinds of shit. Noise. Here it's all kind of padded, right? It's like, oh wow, it's kind of nice. There's no Wi-Fi signal, so I recommend always leave your phone at home when you leave the house. Every time, if you're still a student, you go to uni, you go to school, leave your phone at home. Train this. Oh, but it's so insecure. You know, there's no safety. Well, there never was any safety, right? If somebody is going to kill you because he drives you over with the car, then what's gonna happen? Like, do you think your phone's gonna save your life? No, your phone's not gonna jump in front of the car for you. So you just have to pay attention. And the way I see it, your phone is more likely to kill you than anything else. Because if I see people walking around in the streets with their phones in their hands, they don't really pay attention. And they don't pay attention to themselves, you know? I have practiced awareness and mindfulness enough now that I can pay attention to that dog, which is well trained. I can pay attention to my feet, and I can still talk into the camera. But of course, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And when I would have started, I don't know, maybe I would have injured myself right in the beginning when I started walking barefoot. I had nothing else on my mind but holy shit, this is cold. And then every 5 minutes, oh shit, I have to pee. Because when you walk barefoot in the cold, your body starts to detox. That's what I mean with getting rid of negativity. It's a form of detox, emotional detox, energetic detox. And you start getting rid of it. And one way of getting rid of it is peeing. Another way is yawning. Some people go outside, they start yawning a lot. That's one way of releasing negative energy. And you know, this is quite a long episode. It's like almost podcast length. So anyway, in the beginning, probably all you need to do is just focus on your feet and make sure that if there's like, because your feet are going to be quite sensitive in the beginning. So running barefoot is something for later. That's what I discovered. You start with it. You just go for walks in the park, whatever. You desensitize your feet and you start walking maybe in the forest or on gravel or something. And that is a natural massage. So now we're talking about energy flow again, right? You know, I'm also picking things up as I go. Sometimes I don't really know what I'm talking about until I'm talking about it, right? So by talking about it to you, I also gather new insights. So by explaining yourself, right? Explain to yourself how you feel and why you feel this way. Why do I smoke cannabis? Why am I so depressed? When you start asking these questions, right? And now we're going down. You see how my feet, they spread out, my toes, they spread out. Right? It's like, you know, I know how to walk here. So I'm not afraid to fall because I know how to do this. Right? I know how to run in the mud barefoot. I know how to walk and run in the snow on bare feet because I've trained this for years, and my balance has improved and the awareness of my body has improved to such a degree that if I slip, right, I catch my fall. While most people just fall, you know, I realize when my body is shifting because I have an enhanced body awareness. But you have to work for that. I mean, I suffered. Holy shit, I suffered. And that's why, you know, when I listen to David Lynch talking about transcendental meditation and he says, well, I don't know why Van Gogh suffered. Well, certainly he probably didn't have to cut off his ear. But I know why I'm suffering. Because I'm a human being with emotions, and one way of dealing with this is going barefoot into nature, of going for walks, of hiking, And I do feel the difference. While there are days where I want shoes, there are also days where I say, okay, today I'm going barefoot, tomorrow I'm wearing shoes, right? So I can, it's a balance. Today I feel like this. Okay, tomorrow I'm gonna push myself again. Today I'm gonna be a bit lazy, right? And I'm just gonna eat pancakes. But tomorrow, or maybe the day after tomorrow, I'm going to cook something proper again. Like, I don't know, lentil curry or something with chickpeas, right? So if you drink everyday coffee to make yourself feel better, you're not paying attention to what, first of all, coffee is doing in your body, and second of all, why you are drinking coffee. You just think, oh, I like drinking coffee. No, you drink coffee because you're too lazy to work for your good mood. You just want that caffeine rush. But you don't really get that anymore. And that's why you drink more and more of it. And it's like pouring acid onto a flower and wondering why it doesn't grow. That's what it is. It's like pouring acid onto a flower and wondering why it doesn't grow. Coffee is highly acidic stuff. I mean, that's like drinking charcoal. It's just been marketed. Coffee's been marketed so that you will pay money and make people that sell coffee richer, right? You don't make the people that make the coffee richer. No, just the people that are on top. Everybody else just stays kind of the same. But the people that sell the coffee, like the huge brands, they're getting fatter and fatter, while Mother Earth is getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And so it's a mindset. Instead of, just consuming everything, just consuming all the content you can find on the internet, scrolling through Instagram posts or through TikTok. I mean, TikTok is literally the worst. And so is YouTube Shorts. If I recommend to you, stay away from that shit. And if you don't manage, then I have a suggestion for you. Watch it, but ask yourself why. And that's gonna be really annoying, because a part of you just wants to watch that, right? A part of you wants to be lazy and watch all this junk. But then you just have to start feeding the other part, the inquisitive part, the curious part, that kind of, person in you that wants to know, why am I watching this, right? Why am I drinking coffee every day? Why do I sit around and have no motivation? Well, right? So, now I feel my feet are getting a bit cold because I haven't really done any flexing. I can feel this, that the blood flow is a bit less. So I start jogging, just a light jog. And every time my feet leave the ground, I flex my toes. It's like doing this, right? When you have cold hands, that's what you do. And since you're walking on your feet, it's quite hard to rub them against each other like you would do with your hands. But in general, that's like the best way. And then your feet get quite easily quite warm. Yeah. That's more or less how it goes. Cheers. Yeah. So, one reason why I know it's absolutely possible without having tried it to be barefoot in the snow is because dogs do it. I mean, she doesn't flinch. Have you ever seen a dog flinch when they walk outside? They're the whole day inside, and then they go outside and it's like, oh, nice. You know, like nothing bothers them. They don't need to train this. It's just how they are. Humans, in that sense, I believe, are a bit different because we don't have fur. So I do think, you know, I wear clothes. I dress warmly on top. And then, you know, my feet are naked. But also, if I would do a 5-hour hike now, I probably would have brought shoes, because this can get really uncomfortable. Right, for like a round in the forest, it's quite okay to do this. But for extended periods, it gets like, I mean, you can really induce suffering. But what is suffering? And that brings me back to David Lynch, right? He said, suffering is unnecessary. It isn't. It's necessary. Because what means suffering? When you are depressed, you are usually full with what you may consider to be negative emotions. It's like sadness, sorrow, all that kind of stuff. Suffering is one way of looking at it. When I suffer, something's coming up in me, right? You know, something's coming up in me. Emotions, right? So I have to do something because it's potential energy. All my content that I create has been created with suffering. I suffer and then I start to be creative, because you know what he says? He says negative emotion or suffering is toxic and you cannot be creative. My best creative moments were when I was suffering, but I also learned to have it a bit easier, right? So I learned to say, all right, I can feel really bad being creative. Now I want to try feeling good about it, because if you cling to that feeling of suffering and hatred and I'm angry, you know, and that makes you to be creative, you actually start clinging to it, and then you want to hold on to anger, but the goal is to let go of it. So suffering, often, if you suffer for extended periods of time, that's usually people that hold on to their negative emotions because they believe, you know, they have a right to be angry, right? I'm angry because everybody was so awful to me. But what does that mean? Because you surely contributed to it by either letting it happen, right? By being unable to stand up for yourself. You often encourage people because you're a fucking weakling, and now you want other people because they were stronger than you. Yeah, okay, they abused their strength to push you down, but you were too weak to resist them. So don't blame others for your hatred, right? Because that will only lead to you holding on to hatred, and that means in the long run your depression is gonna get worse and worse. And then I agree, then it's quite destructive. It's like listening to Eminem, for example. Like his raps, you know, he's just attacking everybody. He's just attacking everybody all the time. Instead, he could be saying, hey, let's be friends, but he's still in that, you know, I live in the Bronx kind of mentality. And that's his problem. And then he has to deal with it. But, ja. Im besten Fall nachmachen.
Ja, mal kurz, für 2-3 Sekunden, ja, aber nicht so lange.
Ja gut, der Effekt kommt eigentlich erst nach einer Zeit. Also Wim Hof, der redet ja viel über sowas.
Wie viele Minuten muss man das machen, damit das wirkt?
Also am Anfang ist erstmal scheiße. Also ich mache das seit 2012. Und ich habe halt am Anfang viel... Mach das mal auf. Alright. So, I was just talking to some people, because that's of course the other thing when you walk barefoot. You will eventually get attention for doing so, and that means you have to deal with it, right? So walking around and then everybody starts talking to you, right, at one point it might actually get a bit annoying. So that was also one reason why I wanted to wear shoes more often again. Just for me, because sometimes you want to just walk to the city, right, and then you wear no shoes, then all kinds of people come. Some think you want attention. Well, in a way I do, because I want to show the people, listen, it is possible. And it actually changed my life, right? So sometimes you just want to be left alone. Of course, you can also learn to just ignore everyone. Then they think you're an asshole, but I mean, that's just projection. Because they're insecure and all kinds of stuff. So at some point I started to think about, you know, what can I actually tell people, right? When you do this and people start asking you questions, of course you can give them stupid comments. I don't have money for shoes, but you know, that would be lying, and you know, lying is toxic. Telling lies is toxic, which is why politicians look all so toxic. So instead you can say, well, it's a challenge, because to simply say it's healthy, that's not really the truth, because it can also be quite unhealthy. If you're just walking around in the cold, you may actually injure yourself. So is it healthy? Right, who cares? I'm doing it because I've seen somebody who does this, and I want to see for myself, because that's what life is about. You pick the things that you want to experience them, and then you are going to experience them. You know, it's like, okay, I've heard sex is supposed to be nice, but without making the experience, you won't know. And maybe you've made bad experiences, right? And then, okay, maybe next time I'll wait a bit before I sleep with someone. Just get to know them first. And when we're getting used to each other, right, we can actually have sex with each other, right? So maybe you've had a bad experience barefoot once, but what does that mean? Maybe you were doing it too fast, right? So rather take it a bit slowly. When people ask you, you just say whatever you want. You know, I probably have to say it's not a recommendation in that sense. All I can say is it helped me, because it helped me to get rid of my back problems. It was one thing that helped me to get rid of my back problems. It strengthened my body, and it trained me to be comfortable in situations that I would have previously perceived as uncomfortable. And therefore, I say, you know, it has helped me. It's also proven that cold therapy helps with depression. Well, this is cold therapy. Grounding, forest bathing, right? All these things have been proven for anybody who needs science to explain to them what is already obvious, right? You can read stuff about science. This is all scientifically proven that walking barefoot is good. Generally, as long as you don't like, you know, if you walk around on blazing hot concrete because you think, oh, it's really good. Yeah, I mean, you will get blisters. So, you know, it's not about forcefully injuring yourself. It's about taking the time to get used to the discomfort that you will experience when being barefoot in nature. It's about getting used to it. And you will, if you persist, right? A fool will become wise when he persists in his folly. I remember during my first year, when I was in winter, maybe it was my second year, when I was walking barefoot, I started to walk barefoot, and I was walking around in a frozen forest. There was actually a doctor. Okay, there's people, so I'll stop talking for a bit. And what happened? There was a doctor, and he said, well, it's these kind of people that will sit in my practice. Well, I was never in his practice. Actually, I was never at a doctor because of my barefoot walking habit or my barefoot walking practice. But I was, for wearing shoes. Because when I was in Africa, well, there was, you know, I get it, there was like venomous snakes. And there was venomous snakes, and there also was a lot of thorns. So barefoot wouldn't have been an option, but I did wear huaraches. And I was told that I have to wear closed shoes, you know, at the very least. Didn't have to be hiking boots, but closed shoes. And I bought some kind of, like some form of a running shoe. Yeah, I'm gonna name them Nike Air. And I started running in these after I had already run barefoot for 3 years. And I was so happy that I could run again because they didn't allow me to run in my huaraches. And the only other shoes I had were hiking shoes. So now I had these Nike Air and I started running. And I don't know what they did, but I was running for 1 week, you know, because I was so happy I could run. I was running every day for 4 or 5 days. And they fucked up my feet. And for over a year, I had a lot of pain in my feet. There was probably some kind of inflammation. You know, I don't know, because my feet weren't used to running in shoes anymore. So first, my feet weren't used to running barefoot, which meant that I had to, you know, I did a little squatting, right? You squat like this. You squat like this, it stretches all your tendons and stuff. It's in the beginning, you know, quite uncomfortable. But that's what helped me to stretch my Achilles tendon, because in the beginning when I started running barefoot, you know, I thought my Achilles tendon will just rip. You know, that was like all my tendons, all my sinews, my muscles, they were short AF, right? They were way too short. And so I had to do something about that, because it was either, okay, I have to stop with this barefoot thing, but you know, it was a challenge. I wanted to do it. So I looked up stuff and I found the squat. And it's also good to release tension from your lower back if you have problems with your hernia. You know, it's like a good way of engaging with it. What else? Yeah, I think that's about it. You know, I'm just talking, right? I'm just talking. What I say is hidden in my content, all right? I am not trying to give you everything there is to know about being barefoot. There's lots of information on the internet. That's what I did. I read a lot and then I paid attention, right? If I had a thorn in my foot, I would take a head torch and a needle and some pincers and I will dig until I got it out. You know, I made experiences. Sometimes I hurt myself, you know, I was bleeding sometimes, but I made my experiences and I got stronger. And I can say today, you know, whatever I did helped me, because now I can comfortably walk in the snow in bare feet. Right? So I cannot speak for you. You have to make your own experiences. Whether you want this or not is your choice. I can just say it helped me. It made me also mentally stronger, because I learned to balance you can say myself. I learned to manage to feel really uncomfortable, because I was imposing discomfort on myself. I was choosing discomfort by going out in cold weather and hiking barefoot for hours. I was choosing discomfort, and that meant that discomfort becomes eventually comfort, right? It's like you have a depression and then you work yourself through the depression and you learn to deal with whatever caused the depression, and suddenly it's okay, right? It's like, you know, I know what's causing my depression. It's like being rejected over and over by women. It's like what I'm dealing with at the moment. It makes me quite sad that until now, every woman I've been with, it has ended again, right? That makes me sad. I mean, it's a reason to be sad, but also a reason to be happy, because you can say, okay, I'll see who I'll meet along the way. But it's still something that I'm dealing with, and that's what pushes me into the couch if I allow it to. So I have to make a choice every day to say, okay, there's nobody in my life but me at the moment. I mean, you know, in terms of partner, you know, I don't spend time with friends. I don't have friends, I would say. I'm alone. That makes me strong. But you know, I'm craving for a woman, right? You know, fuck that. I have to take responsibility for the way I feel. And pushing myself is one way. You know, I'm not going running every day 10 kilometers or something. You know? Yesterday I went hiking for 2 hours, wore hiking boots. Today, you know, this is also like probably 1.5 hours or something. I don't know, maybe less, maybe more. Who cares? And now I'm barefoot. So every day I'm trying to introduce, you know, a few things that make me uncomfortable, right? So if I don't feel like going barefoot because I feel weak, I'll go with shoes, and then I make more distance. Because then I don't have to worry so much about salt or, I don't know, dog shit or whatever. Right? So every day I choose something that helps me. So earlier today, you know, I created 6 videos for my YouTube channel. And that included making you know, whatever you consider to be music. To do that, I watched a movie, and that inspired me to make music, right? Music that I like. I like this music. I also decided to make music without lyrics. And then I wanted to create these videos to deconfuse the mind, right? That's the album Catching Clouds, which probably will be released on streaming, I don't know, next month. Or maybe a bit later, I don't quite know. And it's probably gonna be on Bandcamp already, maybe tomorrow, who knows. But in general, that's what I wanted to do today. And then I made pancakes. I made pancakes and I even put sugar in it, even though I actually didn't want it. But I had the feeling if I would eat it without, I would feel like, right? And I wanted to feel like, yay! You know, I worked hard and now I'm allowing myself sugar. But it was way less than I would have normally eaten on my pancakes. So I also put the sugar, it was more like syrup, like sweet beet syrup. I put it into the dough to make sure that I'm not like overloading it with it. So I had 3 teaspoons of sugar, of that syrup. Normally I would eat, probably 8 times the amount. So I've been cutting down on my sugar, but it's all transitions, right? Transition. Maybe you're gonna have days where being barefoot is gonna feel like right on, right? It's like you feel at home being barefoot. And then you're gonna have days where you're gonna hate it, where you wish you could wear shoes. Well, make a choice. Either push through, breathe through it, or wear shoes. Get barefoot shoes. You know, I don't really like advertising, but no, I don't want to say that. You know, there's various brands out there. Find one that you like. You know, I wanted to have shoes that give my feet a lot of freedom, because my feet are quite wide, and because they're also, you know, they spread out, but I always had wide feet. So make a choice, right? You don't have to wear shoes like everybody else. Barefoot shoes nowadays are much better, and just pay attention how you walk in them. Because if you buy barefoot shoes and you walk like you would in normal shoes, you might get injuries. So you have to adapt the way you walk. It's like smoother walking, and you're gonna be slower in the beginning. That's what I had. Being barefoot generally slowed me down. And also barefoot shoes, I don't walk as fast, but that also improved because you get better and better at moving. You become more conscious on how to move. This is like the second round now. I mean, do you believe it? Right? I mean, that's the proof. That's kind of the proof, right? I wanted to keep it on myself now. So sometimes I feel like doing crochet, alright? Sometimes I feel like doing crochet, and then I do it. And then while I'm doing it, I start getting angry and I start hating it. Well, then I just push through. You know, I set myself a goal, and then I'm trying to reach it. You know, that's all you can do. You have a goal, you're trying to reach it. I don't know what your goal is. My goal at the moment is to produce content. But not just produce content like I'm some kind of machine. No. I want to produce content but the kind of content that I feel like. So when I feel like writing, you know, I started writing another book, then I'll write. Then I'll write one evening, and the next day I may not feel like writing. Then I don't write. Because it's not like, you know, I really have to write. I mean, there's a lot of books out there already that you can read from me. So it's not like I have to write. I don't have to show anyone that I can write because I already showed it to myself. There's also articles, you know, irregularly coming up on medium.com. All the links are on my website. So, you know, that's kind of how I'm doing it, right? And if I feel today like pancakes, although I've eaten yesterday already pancakes, okay, I'll eat that. But in the back of my mind, I'm already planning, you know, to cook something proper, maybe the next day or something. So, right, so I could say tomorrow I'm going to eat lentils instead. You know, that's a challenge. Because actually time cooking, making pancakes is something that's like, you know, it's done. But like lentils, at least I have to, yeah, you actually don't really have to do that much. But at least chopping onions, maybe. You don't even have to do that if you don't want to. I mean, you can eat lentils without onions in it. But also one reason why I'm cutting down on my sugar, first of all, because I don't like it to be addicted to things and having no control over it. So once I know that I'm somewhat addicted to something, you know, I also want to learn how to manage without. Right? So the same I had with cannabis, with basically anything, and that also goes for women. Right? If I feel like I can't do without it, you know, that's my challenge. If I feel like I can never be, you know, okay. You know, if I cannot go hiking on my own, well, that's my challenge. That's as simple as that. If I can't do it, I'm gonna figure it out, right? So I have to make space, I have to make time. And that means taking time to learn certain things. But of course, if you have friends and you go hiking with them and you take off your shoes, and you're gonna be a bit slower. So they might start nagging at you, you're too slowly. You know, at the time I had a friend, and maybe I still have him, I don't know, right? Because I haven't really talked to him. But you see, now I'm getting emotional, right? That's like the kind of stuff that throws you off. You suddenly think about someone, it's like, okay, fuck it. You know, he actually was quite considerate. You know, he sucked it up, and he even started also walking barefoot later. I mean, that's the kind of friend that's helpful when you're going through some kind of transition. But at some point, when I started to do more psychedelics, he wasn't helpful because he was trying to talk me out of it. And that's then, okay, sorry, I need space for myself. Because if you work, like really work with psychedelics to work on your trauma, well, what does that mean? It means you're opening up. But who do you want to open up to? You know, I was in a phase of my life where I needed to do things on my own because I wanted to get stronger. And so I did, and here we are. Peace out.